Hello. One of the many reasons I'm standing in front of this absolutely gorgeous forsythia bush is that yellow is my favorite color for creating. And one of the things that I have done in my life when I work with my private students and myself is I will use the word of the day clustering technique with a color, but not just for one cluster. I will use it to get a whole story. And what's amazing is how our creative subconscious is already organized into stories. And a lot of what we're doing by using the word of the day is literally by doing the technique, you're releasing what's in your creative mind onto paper. And the trick and the hack of using one word is that even though we create in images, one word can make the connection between our language minds and our creating minds, and that gives us a lot of power in terms of how we're going to express this material efficiently and quickly. And that is the name of the game in this world, is get it done. Don't get it right, get it written. So the way that you would do this, for example, I'm working on a new story, and I'm calling it the Yellow Story. Not that that will be its name, but that's a recurrent theme in every writing course you've ever taken, or every book you've ever looked at, or anybody you've ever heard talk about this, is always talking about finding themes. And I think that's all well and good, but the themes tend to be cerebral in the sense that they're in language, which to me pushes you out of your creative mind. But if your theme is yellow, it's visual, and so you have much more chance of doing this. And so we have a 30-day challenge going on our Facebook channel, which will probably be going on for a while. And there is a 4-part way for you to develop an outline for a story. Now, this could be for nonfiction, for a screenplay. You know, story is story. And part of the work that I've done for all these years is to understand that we are experts at story. We have dreams, we tell lies, we're experts, we tell true stories. But the idea is that we know how to do this, and we're hardwired for story because the biological imperative can't keep us alive if we don't have some kind of a narrative, which is another way of talking about story. So the narrative is, it's dark, you're alone, you hear creepy footsteps behind you, and you know from experience that it's probably a good idea to run. But that's a story, that's a pattern, that's not necessarily true. My friend told me this amazing story where he was driving, and there was a police car coming after him, and he was speeding. And he just decided, his story was, they're not going to stop me. And he really had to hang on to his story because the cop came almost up to him and then stopped the car behind him. True story. Now, how much of it was, based in reality? The guy had a record, he was carrying a dead body in the trunk and all this stuff. But how much of it was my friend's ability to focus on a different story and change the atmosphere around him? And that's something that we're all very interested in talking about outside this arena. But for our purposes, to work on a piece of story, even if you're working on an email for work, to do the cluster about the color brings you to other places, because let's say you cluster yellow, and you're going to work on a story problem that you don't have a character that you really love, or you're looking for a bad guy. So you put this cluster in the center, and then you think of yellow. You think of forsythia. You think of your mom's bathroom, which was yellow, and then you suddenly think of this guy in grammar school who always wore a sort of ugly yellow jumper, who was the bully. And his name was Fred Farley. And you suddenly go, yes, that's a good model for the villain in my story that I couldn't find 2 minutes ago. You see where I'm going with this? So then you take Fred Farley's name, because that's the last name, you start a new cluster, and you think everything about him. And when you finally get enough material, you can write a little character bio, and now you've got your bad guy. And you can repeat the same thing for all the other characters and all the stuff that you don't know. And then you just go to work and you forget that you ever thought of the color yellow until you get stuck. And then when you get stuck, you go back to yellow, and it will put you right on the path. So this is a writing hack, but it's also very good for, let's say you want to think you're having a bad relationship with somebody. So you start with the color. It doesn't have to be yellow. And when you think of the color, what it does to your unconscious mind is you have those memories. So let's say it's a bad relationship and you pick red. What do you think your chances are of there being Valentine's Day issues that come up in your cluster? About 100%. And so maybe what you end up with is 4 Valentine's Day. The first one was good, the second one was okay, the third one was terrible, and this last one was just, right? But you suddenly realize that you have a structure for a story, right? The 4 Valentines. I think that would make a great book if anybody wants to write it. It's a 4-part story. It could be a 6-part series. But this is the way that your mind operates because it likes to sort things. And you could also take this Valentine stuff and now give it to that bad guy that you invented a few minutes ago. And you suddenly go, oh, I see, she or he was dating this person. And it went wrong, and on that 4th Valentine's Day, and then if you work with movie structure, you go, oh, that's what gets the story started. It's that bad Valentine's Day. Wow. And then using my hacks, what you do is you go out to the end, because it's called the 4 Valentines, and the confrontation comes on Valentine's Day. And whether or not you keep that when you give the draft out to your audience, whether it's a screenplay, a book, or whatever, even narrative nonfiction, you have a structure that has come from within your creative mind that came to you not in language, which is never trustworthy, but in images. And the thing about this is that if you write it from that perspective, your audience will receive it from that perspective. So you're writing heart for heart, and theoretically, based on what I've learned over the years, you don't write as many drafts of whatever it is because this thing works. All right, if you like the conversation, please join us.